Alright, so I'm doing my first video ever for YouTube, and I was coming up with a lot of things. Just took a shower. I think my hair looks cool when I get out of the shower, so I'm gonna leave it like that. It's already a bad start. So I'm in my house, my mom and dad live at home, 28 years old. So I'm thinking of all these things that I could possibly talk about for the length of a YouTube video or many YouTube videos. And I know that I have one without a doubt that I would be able to expound about and let you know some of my expert knowledge. And this would be World of Warcraft, specifically server Skull Crusher and the history of Skull Crusher. And as one of the original servers in the World of Warcraft, it has a lot of history. Start small. It's a vanilla server, one of the first, like I said. Vanilla WoW was a long time ago. I'm gonna get this wrong, but like 15, no, I don't think 15. Yeah, about 12, 15, 10 years ago. I can't remember. But a lot of fun playing the game. Enjoyed it very much. It was really hardcore for a long time. But anyways, the server has some very interesting history. One of the oldest guilds on the server was called Immortality, which is a guild I was a member of. I was not a member during their heyday when they were doing world firsts. And a world first is something that is quite respectable in the gaming community. It's when you have content that has not been completed and your guild is the first to kill a boss or complete a instance. So Immortality was the guild that I joined eventually, but in vanilla WoW, Immortality was downing bosses at the world first level. They were incredibly cutting edge. They had an amazing community. They're very tight knit, and a lot more that I don't even know. But from what I know about Immortality was some of the main guys. There was a priest that was really good, hunters, a couple of rogues, and some mages. All the characters, every class had a great guy. And I followed very closely. I wasn't in the guild during vanilla. I joined during the first expansion pack. But during vanilla, I was watching their progress on databases like, what is it called? Maybe it was WoW Progress back then, but other areas like, there's one, Thoughtbot had some archives for World Firsts and stuff like that, but even back then, there wasn't as much information on who was downing everything first. And they were downing bosses in, for instance, there was a raid consists of 40 people back then. So 40 people all logging into their computers at the same time in the same virtual landscape. You got to have a good computer. That's something I didn't have at first. So these guys all had some nice computers that could support the platform. So they were pretty nerdy. I'm sure their background stemmed from like EverQuest or Diablo or StarCraft maybe. I don't know. It's not much like It's similar. I'm sure they all played all of those games. Anyways, that's not something I really know much about. I might be making up, which is probably what I'll do a lot. But so anyways, these guys are all 40 people logging into their computers at the same time, going through these instances, getting attunements. An attunement gets you the key per se to unlock a raid, to get your character certified to access new content, whatever. It wasn't as popular back then. Attunements there's basically like one or two that were really important, but they were important. And the first instance, I'm not going to get into those details, but there are just cool quest lines and stuff like that. What I'm getting at, though, is that eventually there were really challenging instances where Immortality, the guild again that I was a part of in the expansion, but not during vanilla, Immortality got into these 40-man raids that were really challenging at some point, and they were able to achieve some world firsts, at least on one boss, a world first, questionably Uru the Sandworm in on-Kari 40-man instance, or on-Kiraj. I always say Kari. There's so many things that I mispronounce, and I'm sure that's across all the players, they probably all say everything differently. Maybe it's just my speech impediment or something. But AQ40, big world first there. Interesting part of that is there's something called a nerf. The final boss had to be nerfed by Blizzard, the parent company of World of Warcraft. So they're competing for a world first for a little while, I'm pretty sure. That's the part I could be making up. They were battling Sithun, the end boss of AQ40, and the Blizzard guys, before anybody was able to down it, were forced to nerf the boss, and Immo came up with a pretty good kill, I'm sure. I don't know where it ranked in the world, but they earlier, a couple bosses before, had a world first. They also had world first gear. They got the world first Thunder Fury, which is a legendary weapon. This weapon was pretty dope. Had a cool effect, and it was the world first achieved by, I'm not positive who it was. I'm thinking it was a paladin, or maybe not. I could be wrong. But Immortality claims, and I think that's probably accurate, that they were the first in the world to forge the weapon and wield it. So that's another world first that Immo was a part of on server Skullcrusher, the guild that I eventually played for. Finally, I'm going to keep the video relatively short and say that there's a sweet instance called Nax that eventually came out right after AQ, the one that I just talked about. And Nax was where this game really took off, in my opinion. The not artwork, but not tooltip, what am I looking for? Visual, or the way that all the gear eventually looked for Nax was life-changing. I know, it's kind of weird to say that it was life-changing, but the outfits that you could get from collecting all the gear as you fought through all the bosses in the instance Naxxramas, it's another pronunciation one. But it was like watching like little miniature superheroes, like when you got your full 8 of 9 or 9 of 9, rarely, I think I've seen an 8 of 9 one time, maybe a 9 of 9 Horde side while I was in a 10-man in vanilla, which was pretty cool too. Oh, which raises another cool point. There's these, side note, battling guilds on server Skullcrusher in vanilla. Immortality and Rage. It was like The Rock versus Triple H in WWF. It had The Rock being Immortality because we were Alliance. I forgot to say I was Alliance Guild. And Triple H with Degeneration X would be represented by Rage. And Rage was not that great. Well, they were always great, but they weren't as good as Immo for a while. I'm biased in saying that, and it's probably not true. They're probably just as good, if not better. But in Nax, they took over the lead, Rage that is, the Horde side guild, and became one of the best in the world for a long period of time, and they outperformed Immortality and other Alliance guilds on Skullcrusher for a couple of years, or at least a couple of expansion packs. They're not really around anymore. Kind of are. I don't know. I heard they're kind of still kicking around, but I haven't seen them very much. They were competing for world first eventually too. So, Nax, Rage, Immortality, cool gear. I was at boarding school at the time when Nax was coming out, and I wasn't able to play because they had restrictions on the internet. But I was able to check the progress on like WoW progress or whatever else. And I could see who was downing what when we were downing, or when Immortality or other guilds were down clearing the instance. And it ended up being a guild called Death and Taxes, which was a pretty cool guild. Eventually got the world first, I'm pretty sure. U.S. guild, or maybe it was Nihilum. Sorry, the U.S. first was Death and Taxes, or it was Risen, or world first legendary was Risen. D&T was somewhere in the first or second for U.S. And then Nihilum was a EU guild that was, or I would always say Nihilium, it's another pronunciation. They were another one of these, blah, blah, blah. They cleared the instance, ended the entire first phase of WoW, the original vanilla WoW. They got the highest gear you could get, cleared the hardest bosses, and pretty much said game over. They ended it. I'm not sure. Immortality ended up, and this is interesting, Immortality, to bring it back full circle. Immortality, I eventually joined in the expansion pack months later, but at this time they experienced a lot of guild drama, and there were some dissenters that made their own offshoot guild, Pirates of the Caribbean, which I always thought was like actually kind of a cool name for a guild. I don't know why, but they became POTC, and a lot of the guys went with the main tank and a couple of other important dudes, and there was some drama, but that was the end of vanilla. And then BC came around, Burning Crusade. I eventually joined in Immortality, got into some good content, got some 25 mans in. I was never one of the top end raiders, but I was included in some of the progress, and I'll always remember it. I'll always be very proud to say that I was an Immortality member. It's a guild with a lot of history, a lot of loyal players and friends, and relationships are built, and a lot of love from the Immo Skull Crusher server. This is my cool WoW video that I wanted to post to YouTube. So if you watch this, please comment and enjoy. Thank you.